Hello, everyone. Welcome to our, I think it's the second to last Tuesday talk. And this is with the 1L professors from contracts, civil procedure, and criminal law. So to keep it easier for everyone, we have a little order going on. If we can start with civil procedure and with Professor Hines.
Yes. Hi, I'm Professor Laura Hines. I will have many of you for civil procedure this fall. Welcome. This is going to be maybe a little different than most first-year law students experience in our historic past, but you'll probably be like a lot of other law students across the country. So hopefully we will all be able to figure this out together. And what's important is that we do our reading and that we show up every day, even though it's online for some of you in some classes. It's going to be really important to really focus on what it is that you're trying to learn, what the professor's trying to teach that day. One piece of advice that I would have for you is that for some of you, it's going to be a really sharp transition from what you're used to from undergrad. And for some of you who've been out of undergrad for a while, it may be an even different transition. But you need to do your reading. You need to think about your reading. You need to answer the questions in the notes following your readings, and then go back and read the reading again. At least in my undergraduate experience, you just sort of got through the material, then you went into class and sort of waited for the material to sort of become a little bit more clear to you. And in law school, 90% of it is in your own head, figuring out how to teach yourself how to understand the case and how to work through the problems. And then the professor can help, sort of do some fine tuning and maybe introduce some things that you hadn't really thought of. But it is not sort of a read it once and then show up and receive wisdom from the mighty professors. There's really a lot of a work on your own that you need to be doing. And so, plan on that and expect that when you're starting your classes.
Great. Professor Mulligan.
Hello, I'm Lou Mulligan. I will have, I think, 3/5 of the 1Ls in Civ Pro this semester. So Professor Hines and myself will be the Civ Pro team. I really look forward to meeting folks. I see some familiar faces from some undergraduate programs on screen, so it's great to see you folks here. And I really look forward to getting to know you. I know all of us are going to try lots of different things to create the relationships that we would normally create, and that's really important for me. So some things which might seem a little formal but will really help in an environment where we might be masked and that sort of thing, such as I'm ensuring that we'll have name tints. I will also be asking folks to create little recipe cards with your picture and some facts about you, because much of the informal chit-chatting around the table and stuff that we would normally do, what makes KU Law so special, will have to be a bit more intentional about. So please make sure you embrace that stuff, not as a busy work task, but as us trying to find these ways of being more intentional to get to know you. So we're really developing that relationship with you and get to know you as a person and as a student this semester, even though we have a few challenges in the way of doing that. I would also echo everything that Professor Hines said of really ensuring that you're investing in yourself, and you have to make that big investment. And the last thing I would say, there's lots of things about KU Law that are really special, but one of them is our deep student focus, and most of our faculty here are around a lot, or maybe virtually around, but it really enjoys students coming in with questions. So don't allow a virtual presence to get in the way of you dropping into virtual office hours, whether it's to talk about an issue in class or let's go like, I don't know what lawyers do. I don't have lawyers in my family. I just want to know, I want to kick it around. That's usually the highlight of my day. So please make sure you take advantage of those spots and don't let the technology get in the way of still having those great conversations. And so welcome to KU Law. Welcome to Lawrence if you're new to Lawrence, and I look forward to a great semester.
Thanks. Professor DeHozel.
Hi, I'm Professor DeHozel, and I teach contracts. I'll be the first of the three of us contracts professors talking. Just a couple things. First, welcome to law school. I guess I want to especially echo Professor Hines' comments. This is a different type of learning experience than typically you get in an undergraduate class. That really, particularly in first year classes, yes, you'll be learning the law, but more importantly, you'll be learning how to learn the law. Because when you're out there in practice, that's what you have to do. So our goal is to prepare you to be lawyers. And it's a cliche that you're learning how to think like a lawyer, but frankly, cliches are often true, and this one is. The second thing is for students in my class, things are really up in the air about where and when and how it will be taught. I can tell you definitively, it will not be in the Burge Union room that is shown on the schedule. Beyond that, I don't know. So keep an eye out on probably Blackboard to find out how this is going to work. And hopefully before a week from tomorrow, we'll have it figured out. So again, welcome to KU.
Thank you. Professor Platt.
Hello there, I'm Alex Platt. I'll be teaching a section of contracts this fall. And boy, I am jealous of you all. It is such an amazing experience to go through the first semester of law school. I think there are very few experiences like that that you get to go through as an adult, where you sort of change the way you think about the country or the world that you've been living in so dramatically in such a short period of time. So I really envy you all for what you're about to go through. It should be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of work. So I can echo what folks have said. And for my class, I strongly recommend not only that you do the reading, but you should consider figuring out what works for you, but taking written notes on a separate piece of paper about what you're reading. You'll learn, I think, in orientation about something called briefing cases or outlining. When that is discussed during orientation, I encourage you to pay attention to that and think about actually doing that. It sounds sort of crazy. It sounds like a lot of work to have a separate notepad or maybe even a Word doc or something to keep your notes for your reading, but that is the way to force yourself to actually engage actively rather than just passively with the reading, so that when you show up to class, you've already not only read the material, but also have thought enough about it to write a couple sentences about the key takeaways from what you've read. Don't worry too much now. This will be covered in orientation, I think, and also in my class, we'll talk about some of the strategies for class preparation and all that. But again, welcome. I'm so excited to meet you all, and it's going to be a really fun semester, I hope, for everybody.
Thank you. Professor Ware.
Hello, everybody. I'm Stephen Ware, and I guess the first thing I'm going to ask you all to do, if you have your camera on, is please raise your hand so I know that you're hearing me okay. It's a way of signaling that my microphone is loud enough. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. So that's actually an example of one of the points I wanted to make now. Really, as Alex Platt, Professor Platt said, first year of law school can be a wonderful experience. I know I thought it was a great year, and I guess I'm biased, but I thought my contracts experience in first year of law school was the most wonderful experience. And so my goal is to do that for you all in my contracts class. And I'm sure every teacher here on this call has that view about trying to make the course a really memorable, positive experience for you. And I will say this, that when in March, we all had to adapt, faculty and students, to the pandemic and changing from traditional in-class, face-to-face learning to distance, different technologies and all. My goal, and I was really pleased when a lot of the students sort of endorsed this, was just to keep the law school experience as normal as possible. In other words, we all had to adapt to the pandemic, but can we make those changes in a way that preserves as much of the sort of regular law school experience that we've all been used to, many of us faculty, for decades? And it actually worked pretty well, according to most everyone. So I'm optimistic that that'll happen again for your first year experience, and it'll be really special in the way it was for most of us when we had first year of law school in whatever era. And then the second point is really the long-term view of law school. Professor Drahozal mentioned that. And I'm going to pick up on that by pointing out that what many of you will have is really long careers in the law, 30, 40-year careers in the law, where things are going to change. The world's going to change, the law is going to change, and boy, we all noticed that with this pandemic, changes. And so part of what I think we're all doing, faculty and students, is being resilient to adapt to new circumstances and keep doing what lawyers do, which is really important for society. So I think if we all just have a good spirit of we're all in this together and we're trying to make it work as smoothly as possible, it'll go very well.
Thank you. Now on to criminal law, Professor Stacy. You're muted.
Now can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. Tom Stacy. I look forward to talking to, I guess, about a half of you about topics such as cannibalism, euthanasia, and shooting robotic deer in the belief that they are actual deer. And I guess the class will be divided into fours so that 3/4 of you will attend any given class. So altogether, everyone will attend 3 in-person classes and participate in 1 class via Zoom. And I've gotten some inquiries about course materials. I have my own course materials, and I'm revising them to, among other things, include additional material on race and the criminal law. And I'll ship those out next week, and you can buy a softbound hard copy from the bookstore if you want. I guess I have a couple of pieces of advice about law school. One is insist that you understand the material. I think the fear of seeming stupid is a huge impediment to learning. And one of my favorite stories involved a student in one of my classes called Conflicts of Law, which is too esoteric to begin to explain. But this student always raised her hand to make sure that she understood the material. And I could see classmates rolling their eyes because some of her questions were very, very basic. But she just insisted that she understood the material before we moved on. And I was thrilled when I decoded the exam scores to learn that she had the highest score in the class. The second piece of advice is that everyone's conception of the criminal law is a little bit different. And I've created kind of my own internal world, which reflects my understanding. So course materials, course outline, PowerPoint slide, lots of exam questions and answer keys. And, you know, there are lots of commercial materials, study materials out there. But I think it would help if you largely restrict yourself to my internal world so that we're on the same page. I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you. And just to clarify, Professor Stacy, when you say you're going to ship out the criminal law materials, will that be to their emails or on Blackboard digitally?
All of the above. So I'll ship it out via course distribution list, via email, and also post them on Blackboard.
Thank you. And Professor Young.
Hi, everyone. I'm Corey Rayburn Young. I'm teaching, the last time I checked, it was 66 of you in criminal law this fall. I'm really excited, and I know that some of you might be feeling like this online or partially online experience is somehow less than, the full law school experience. But I'm actually really optimistic. It's different, there's no doubt. But I'm a professor in particular that's very technology oriented. Like Stacy, I provide my own materials, and it's kind of related to one of the things he pointed out, which is most of the commercial criminal law materials are horrible. They're inaccurate. They're often written by people who have no background in criminal law. So I have my own case book that's open source, and it's used by me and some professors at other schools as well. I use a lot of video clips. I provide my students all the slides. And the interesting thing is, I'm teaching the class asynchronously, meaning that I'm going to have a recorded lecture that's a smaller portion of class, and then we'll have a discussion. I actually feel like we're going to be able to do a lot more exercises that are facilitated through Zoom, and the way that we'll break into groups and so forth. So I'm really excited. It's gotten me to think a lot about how this format fits with what I've done in the past and what new things I can add to it. And so I'm really looking forward to it. But one of the things I do want to emphasize for me, and I think it's true of the other professors here since I know them, which is, this is a new experience for you all. And if you think we could be doing something better to make this format work, right? If we're not communicating saying, well, tell us right away, because one of the biggest things that is lost here, and there are some losses, is being able to read the room. I get a lot from looking at students and seeing, those furrowed brows or those confused looks. That might not be as easy. So you can do things like send a chat message during the class or send an email, some communication, because we want to do what's best for your education. And so let us know what you think could help or what's not working for you, and we'll do our best to improve there. But thank you all for coming in. I look forward to meeting you all soon in criminal law.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for any of our professors? Anybody? I would be shocked if none of you have a question.
I was just wondering, what is a good day to buy our books? Because I feel like I'm behind on that. So I know we should have them before class starts, but what's a good time to say you should have all your books?
Well, I see a lot of professors shaking their heads, so.
There's a lot of time. I mean, the big thing with getting your book is first day assignment. I mean, that's, sure, you want to get familiar and stuff. So, there's not a big rush. Do not feel like you're behind if you don't have your books. It's one of the reasons I'm also working on a new edition to my book, like Professor Stacy, and I'm not going to give it to you last minute. You'll have plenty of time, but there is lots of time before the first day of class. So don't feel like there's any rush, and I think everyone would agree on that.
Yeah, I'll just second that to say just getting the books a day or two ahead of class to do the reading for the first class is all I would think.
Right. I think it also depends on if you're using the KU bookstore, which I know they have their rules posted on their website about how they're distributing their books, then you can get them relatively quickly. If you're trying to order them from the internet, then that would be a time schedule that you would want to determine on your own when it comes to shipping. But if you're ordering them through the KU bookstore, they would have them on hand and you'd be able to see all the options online. So I think I bought sometimes my books the day school started. So you are not behind. Yes, Kat?
Do you all allow laptops or devices in the classroom, those of you that will be teaching in person, for note taking, or do you prefer or require not having devices with us?
I allow them.
I allow them.
I'm teaching
I
remotely.
typically do not allow them, but this year could be different because of the need to have Zoom access for some students who are attending remotely. So it's going to depend on the professor. You'll need to find that out from the individual. And I will say the reason for that is, I think, as Professor Platt suggested, there's a lot of evidence suggesting note-taking by hand works better than note-taking by computer. I will say I have yet to see a really good study about the law school setting, where if you do, in fact, go back afterwards and go through your notes afterwards, make a good outline and study from that outline, I think you can accomplish pretty much the same thing. If we were giving you a quiz after class, I would definitely say you should write your notes by hand, because I will think you would learn it better. But that is all a matter of individual faculty policy. And I think it typically varies. With the pandemic, it's going to be more complicated.
So stereotypically in my class, I would not allow 1Ls to use laptops. My former colleague at Michigan State has been doing a study every year for the past 12 years, and he's found a statistically significant correlation between not using a laptop in class and exam success over 12 years. And I think a lot of it, jokingly for me, I would say that a lot of people become stenographers and not note takers. And so learning how to actually take a note as opposed to record an event is a skill to have as well. And I think even with the lawyers that I interact with now, very few people go in and put a laptop between themselves and a client. That may change over time, but still, it's still today, my sense that that's not acceptable. So I think having those skills are important. That said, in my class this year, because of connectivity issues, we will have that, but I will ask people to use it only for Zoom purposes. The last thing I would say, I think everyone who, I know for myself, I use a lot of PowerPoints, but I will distribute everything to you. So really, you shouldn't have to be recording the experience as opposed to jotting down a question or helping yourself with an understanding. I was confused about X. Now I understand it, because the bulk of the material will be arriving.
That is also a matter of differing faculty practice. I do not do that definitively, because you already have everything I put on my slides, because it's all just summaries of cases. So this is all a long way of saying, as you can tell from this discussion, different faculty members have different views about this. So either they will have the information on their syllabus, which presumably will be available on Blackboard, or they'll tell you the first day of class. And if they don't, ask.
But one thing to keep in mind, both with everyone here, is to know yourself in terms of how you put things together. Law school is different. And even if it's true that the average student, might do a little bit better with handwriting, and, there's still evidence that might point, there is evidence that might point that way. All of you aren't the average student, and many times you'll do quite well in a certain setting with a certain class by writing things. Don't be a stenographer, as Professor Mulligan points out. That is not usually a good note-taking strategy, because you're not thinking through things. But I have some students, because I provide my book in Word format in addition to PDF, they take notes right in the book. So their book becomes their notes. Now, that's not for everyone, right? That's a particular strategy. And so one of the things you learn during your first year is what works for you, drawing from your past experiences. And so even if you're in a class that you don't bring laptops in, you might find a lot of value in typing it afterwards, or you might find value structured different ways. So just try to, don't always listen to, especially some to us says, oh, you have to do it this way, because there are a lot of different ways to succeed in law school. And every semester, my top students vary enormously in how they approach the course, how they outline, you'll learn about outline, how they took their notes.
And just along those same lines, I was a stenographer in law school. I wrote everything down, and I found that very helpful. So it totally is, different things work for different people, which is what I would tell you if you were in my class too. So. And for what it's worth, I was a stenographer back in the old days when you wrote it by hand, not when you actually had computers to type. So.
I will let you all know that, and this will be in your orientation schedules and emails, which you're probably going to get more than one of those. But the lawyering professors and the lawyering professors are asking that you bring your computer if you're coming in person for orientation. There are specific things that they are wanting to show you while you are on the computer. And then also when they're trying to get you your logins for things like LexisNexis and Westlaw, it is going to be much easier if you have your computer with you. So they are asking that if you have one, to please bring it. So, and again, I know we've brought this up multiple times. If there's any technology issue that you have and due to finances, you need assistance, please email Dean Terranova and she can help you with that. We got a few more questions. Oh no. Let's see. Brandon is asking, for the courses where part of the class is on Zoom and part of the class is in person on a particular day, are those on Zoom that day able to still interact in the class, or will it be a passive experience?
I don't think any of us can necessarily answer that question for all of us, but it would certainly be my practice to interact in all of my Zoom classes. You know, I don't know. I think there may be, like Professor Young was suggesting, that he might have part of his that is a sort of a lecture or a presentation format, and then part of it would be discussion. I would be surprised if any of your professors will have just a passive experience, but I don't know that we all know what all of us are doing.
The idea of using Zoom is to make enable interactivity both in person and online. That said, one of the things we are still figuring out how to do is how to do that effectively, because it is not as easy as if everyone's in the same room. But that absolutely would be my goal if I were setting up a class that way. And I don't know yet if I'm setting up a class that way. But if I were, that is absolutely, and frankly, as far as I'm concerned, that's a requirement that the people online be able to interact, because that's an important part of what I expect my class to be like.
Yeah, that's a great example of what I was referring to earlier when I said trying to make the course and law school as normal, given the strange circumstances, as we can, make it as regular and normal as we can. So all of us, whether it be by Zoom or whatever, my goal is to make it as full and normal, a regular experience as possible. And some of that is just us all communicating with each other, helping each other on how to do that. Like I noticed one of the questions in the chat is, it's hard to hear people speaking through masks. But we do all need to keep our masks on in class. So yes, we all need to make a point of speaking a little louder than we otherwise would. And we all need to go the extra mile to make sure everybody else can hear us.
Going to say my larger Civ Pro section, which is the section that meets at 8 in the morning, the way God intended civil procedure to be taught. That class will be one in which I have a quarter of the class will be on Zoom each day, and we'll sort of rotate through. Given my practice rounds with the technology, particularly the audio, I think that for that quarter of the class who's on Zoom that day, that those people will not be subject to on call in my class anyways, just because the ability to get that to work without feedback loops and other things, I think exceeds my ability to operate the technology. But we will, of course, questions, and I will have, we call them Dean's Fellows. We might think of this person as a TA who will be in the room and will be monitoring chat. So even if we have issues with those people speaking through speakers and creating feedback loops, there will be a TA who would be able to see your question on chat and ask the question in some sense on your behalf to the room. If I have someone who's permanently on Zoom, we will have to do some different accommodations for that person. But as it stands right now, given the microphoning equipment we have today, the ability to have Zoomers audio in and that going back and forth, I've yet to see that happen successfully. So we will most likely proceed with a more written interactivity for that 1 day a week for you in that class.
I also, I want to follow up on what Brianna was saying about getting help with technology. I noticed that there's a lot of black boxes here. I can tell you that in my class, you're going to have special permission from me to be a black box in my Zoom class, because so much of it is interactive and I'm going to need to see your faces to do that. And so if one of the reasons you're in a black box today is you're like, whatever, it's August and I don't want to show up in person today, that's fine. But if you have technology reasons, if your computer somehow, is really not up to the task, or if you have internet challenges, I do encourage you to sort those out before school starts, because I and some of your other professors are going to demand that you actually be present and have the technology that enables you to interact both visually and through audio.
Great, thank you. And again, sorry, go ahead, Professor Young.
I was just going to say, it is good to come to these forums and get used to Zoom and if you haven't used it much, the interface, it varies sometimes if you use a different machine. There are some quirks to it. One that you should probably know, and I don't even know if all the faculty know, which is, let's say you private chat another classmate, it actually shows up in the complete chat transcript at the end of the Zoom session, even if it was private. And so Zoom has some oddities that you should just be aware of. And so, yeah, it's a tool we're going to be using, and it's something that, it does the job really well in a very particular way. So getting used to your own technology and is I think, something that will help all of us. And like Professor Hines, I do want to see faces because it helps the interaction. There's a lot of nonverbal communication that can go on during a discussion. And it's very good for me to be able to know where you're at and what I need to do to help you learn better.
Great, thank you. I am going to read some of these questions out loud, although they were answered in the chat, because if someone is watching this later, they might not be able to see that part. So where will first day assignments be posted? When should we expect to see those? Professor Mulligan stated they would be posted with notice by the registrar in a few days. For your lawyering first day assignment, it will be on the What's Next part of the admitted page of KU Law. And I can post that in the Facebook group as well. And Professor Ware addressed Jaden's question, which is, will we be required to keep our masks on when getting called on in class? The answer is yes. So let's see what else we have. We have a question: do students that are remote learning need to get tested in case we have to be on campus at some point? No one's asked that before, Tara. The testing is required to be on campus. I can ask and clarify that for you and let you know, because I probably need to know that as well, since I'm supposed to be working from home. I will let you know. And I don't see any other questions. Does anyone else have anything to ask? Now's a good time. No? Okay. Well, thank you all for joining today. I look forward to seeing your faces on Zoom soon again. And I will be sending out the orientation material hopefully in the next couple days for the schedules. So I know, it's very exciting. Lots of last minute changes, so as you can expect. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, y'all.